Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. I hope some people out there enjoy these videos, but I do get a bit nervous and wonder if people do enjoy my ramblings. But anywho, yeah, here goes. I thought I would start with a bit of a negative first of all, and then hopefully get more progressive, like I did in possibly my last video or the one before that. So this is hard to sort of admit to or say in a way, but being a Celtic fan and that kind of thing. But basically, in the history, and again, I want to get the worst sort of thing out of the way. In the history of Celtic in the past, there was the boys' club, which produced or helped to produce players, so to speak, or train players for Celtic. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I know there was like an abuse scandal, basically a child abuse scandal that happened at the club. I don't know how deep it goes, or how many, unfortunately, how many children were abused and that kind of thing. How many people were involved in that sort of thing? How many coaches of that club or whatever, unfortunately, were involved with that? But I think it would only be fair for Celtic to try to find a way to, if and when possible, reparate, as I would say, or in other words, compensate, for want of another word, the victims of such, their victims or their families, or both, who went through such. I know there was like some court case and stuff like that, but I think it would only be the right thing to do, so to speak, for Celtic to sort of pay for that sort of thing. I think it would be unfair to do what our rivals say, which is sweep it under the carpet. And I do feel a bit like a broken record sometimes. I do repeat myself, I know, and I did sort of mention these things recently, but as new ideas have come to my mind, so I thought I'd cover some of those things. Excuse me. But yeah, I think that Celtic should pay for such. The only problem is, I'd love for Celtic also to support like victims of abuse from all sorts, from other football teams as well, and from all walks of life, from all around the world and all backgrounds, like to reparate or compensate, or whatever term you want to use, victims of abuses, whether that's physical, say sexual, violent, or even mental, verbal, and that kind of thing, abuse, and like to campaign against crimes, criminality, torture, violence, wars, and things like that. I think it'd be good for Celtic to stand against those things. I suppose they're sort of things I stand for. So obviously I'm going to try and push for the club to stand for those things. And I'd love to work with the club in the future, but hopefully, I think the first thing is to try and reparate the victims and work with the families and try and look at what they want and what's the fairest way to sort of compensate them and whatnot. Reparate, compensate, whichever term you want to use. And then also to learn from it so it never happens again, not now and certainly not into the future. But yeah, I think that's sort of getting the worst out of the way, although a kind of positive could be made from it by reparating or compensate them. Now, to be quite controversial as I can be, well, being honest, I know anything can sort of offend someone out there, but I feel there's a lot of atrocities carried out by Empire, which with Celtic coming from an Irish diaspora, which went through the potato famine and being ran by an overseas nation and all the things that come with colonialism, which to me is a crime. Again, I know it's very controversial today. I think Celtic should also be compensated. I'm talking a lot about Celtic now because obviously the Derby game, which happened technically yesterday, happened over the weekend. So I was going through. I thought I'd talk about Celtic. So, but here are some of the ways I hope Celtic would be able to hopefully pay, reparate, compensate, again, whichever term you want to use, the victims of the boys' club and abuse that happened at the club, as well as maybe even helping those who happened at other clubs, even though Celtic might not. Celtic hopefully didn't have anything to do with those sort of abuses, which may have happened in all sorts of football clubs, in all sorts of sports, as well as learning lessons. I think helping any disadvantaged people, I think, is really important, and I think that's what the club should stand for now and into the future, which I suppose it always kind of has done, although some members of the club have given it a bad rep and done some terrible, evil things. But hopefully it's a very small percentage of people. But again, going on to the positive side, trying to make, with that in the most respectful way possible, trying to make a positive out of a negative situation by helping to learn from such and compensate the victims and things like that. But I think I don't know how much it would cost, what type of money Celtic should pay to the victims. What other precedents have happened before? So how much victims have been paid before who have been victims of abuse, especially this kind of abuse. So I don't know how much Celtic would have to pay for such thing, how many victims there were, and that kind of thing. But I think it would be the right thing to do, so to speak, in my opinion. I'm sure the opinion of many people, but I'd love to hear what people think about that. What people think about whether Celtic should pay back to help the victims, and if so, how much? What would be a fair amount? Even if I hear from Rangers fans, Celtic fans, fans of other teams in Scotland or even around the world, or even people who are not even into football but might have watched this video. I did want to say at the start of the video, because it wasn't technically an intro, but I did want to say, please get everyone who you know who's into football and politics, ethics and sports and whatever generally, or whoever wants to support a struggling YouTuber, or whoever wants to, whoever you think might agree with my plans to make the world a better place and stuff like that. I was going to say, please get them to watch this video and hopefully subscribe and like the videos and things like that. But I know when I say that at the beginning of the video, sometimes people sort of switch off or whatever. But that's what I was going to say, to be honest. But anyway, on to the more positive sort of things and how I think Celtic could pay back. And I hope Celtic would have money after that even to help other victims of all sorts of abuse, as say mental, verbal, and even physical, and even sexual, especially in fact, or even to tackle bullying, even just to tackle poverty and make the world a better place. So here are the sources, I speak properly say, of how I hope Celtic would get money to do such things. One, through the support, I'm not necessarily saying in order, but supporters. I would love for supporters to invest into, donate to, have shares in, have equity in, and whatnot, the club, and help to fund a compensation package to help people who went through bad things, or even tackle poverty generally, to reparate people who have been through abuse, especially at what happened in the past in the boys' club, or even, as I say, abuse generally from other football clubs and other sources and other things around the world. Those who went through abuse or torture or anything like that. I suppose torture is a form of abuse, but especially children, but even adults as well. Also, to fund like things like academies, sports clubs, and things like that as well, and help the club to hopefully make the world a better place overall. Also, Catholic organisations, as I often say, I'm not a Catholic myself, but I think with what Rangers say about Catholics, I think it would be good for individuals, churches, associations, organisations, NGOs, charities, and even the Vatican itself, maybe anyone to do with Catholicism, I think should invest in and just generally support Celtic. Reason being is because, as I say, it would get revenge on Rangers. Say, I don't really care about Catholicism, if I'm absolutely honest, but I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I hope that doesn't make me lose support, but I think there is an incentive for Catholics, with the hate that Rangers express for Catholics and blaming Catholics for all the world's ills. I think it would be something to sort of stick two fingers back to them. Talking of sticking two fingers back to racist or prejudiced people, I think it's great that Kyogo scored in the game. It was a great victory. Really cheered up my day, even though I had a headache and I was very tired. It still didn't give me much energy, but it did uplift me at least a little bit. Or for some reason I was very tired and very hungry. But so yeah, supporters, Catholic individuals and organisations, associations and whatnot, and also anti-imperial groups, P.O.C, people of colour, people from the Far East, people from former colonies, colonized countries, maybe people from nations which I hope to support, to say thank you to me, could support Italian football and Celtic, as I often say. Also, working together with the Hibs and Celtic, not even just Irish, but Celtic individuals and organisations around the world, and it could be that Celtic given its name and its history and things like that, could be a representative for the 8 Celtic countries, as I would call them, due to my alliterations. Again, I know I do repeat myself. I know I did say that before, so please forgive me. But yeah, I'll try and think of something new to say. But yeah, I think to have money, to have reparations for what happened to the Irish diaspora, escaping famine, torture. In some cases, I'm sure many were tortured and things like terrible things happened, and also loss of liberty, being run by an overseas nation, and so many other things that happened to the Irish community. So many were wiped out. So many lost loved ones and families. They had to move nation and things like that. So I think that getting reparations from politicians, councillors, the government, in Glasgow and all those organisations in Glasgow and in Scotland generally, and possibly in the UK, and so there's a precedent, or however you pronounce that word, for reparations. It happened for the Jewish community, it happened for the Japanese in America after Pearl Harbor, and it's probably happened to other groups as well. So I don't know why it couldn't happen for the Irish, and maybe the Celtic could work with anti-imperial groups, countries that are colonized and whatnot, to help them to get reparations as well, and in turn those can help Celtic to get reparations. I would love for Celtic to have as much money as possible from, as I say, supporters, Catholic organisations, individuals and organisations, even the Vatican and whatnot, charities, NGOs, P.O.C, people of colour, anti-imperialists, and the state aid, money from politicians, councillors, and that kind of thing. The lottery fund, also even tax exemptions, or paying the lowest amount of tax as possible. I know I did mention that before, so again, sorry for repeating myself, but I would love for Celtic to get money from all of those sort of sources. So that would be about 5, maybe 6 or 7 sources even. Well, supporters, Catholic individuals and organisations, charities, NGOs, anti-imperialists, people of colour, the state aid, politicians, councillors, and that kind of thing, and the lottery as well, and getting tax exemptions, or at least paying the lowest amount of tax as possible. And from such money, I think it would be good and the right thing to do, as I say, the right thing to do to reparate, compensate, whichever term you want to use, the victims of abuse that happened at the club. And if there's any money left over after that, to invest, to support or use that to help victims of abuse around the world. Sorry for my rambling, but yeah, I'd love to know what you think about my ideas. Also, what you think about the game, if you got to watch it, what you thought about the game. If you're a Celtic or Rangers or any other fan, even a neutral, do you think the score was a fair result? How do you think the ref and the officials did? Even if Rangers fans watch this video and want to rant or add your 2 cents, you'd be welcome as well. Even if you want to say like how much compensation you think Celtic should pay, or hopefully be fair and reasonable, I suppose. But any comment, anyone who does want to comment, even like Rangers fans who want to rant about the referee, or if you feel it was an unjust decision, or even neutral fans. Obviously, as a Celtic fan, I'm sort of looking at it from green and white tinted spectacles, so I'm going to look at it in a way where, but I'm trying to be as fair as possible. I didn't really get to see the game, and I couldn't really see if the player was offside. I wanted to do a match review, but I didn't really get to see the game. So unless I was going to type up to my fellow Celtic fans, or I could even ask Rangers fans, perhaps. I don't know any, but I could type up and ask them for a review of the game, even from their point of view as well. Obviously, the more fair-minded or decent Rangers fans. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I am out. Peace and love.